Your first-class trip was more important than my wedding. My parents chose my brother's luxury travel over my big day, so I walked down the aisle with the quiet man they called worthless. By Monday, our wedding video had 3 million views, and my father's CEO asked how his embarrassing daughter secretly owned half the company. We didn't save money for your wedding, Emma. You need to understand that Jack's trip was more important. My father's voice was completely calm on the phone. Like he wasn't telling me that my wedding was only 2 weeks away. Like he wasn't refusing to help with one of the biggest days of my life. Like he was simply declining to pay an ordinary bill. I was standing in my kitchen. My wedding invitations were spread across the counter. My dress receipt was sitting beside them and my coffee had gone almost cold. Dad, are you saying you used the money that was supposed to pay for my wedding for my brother's first-class tickets? There was silence for a few seconds. Then he said, Jack really needed that trip. I lowered the phone from my ear. That was the moment I understood something I had known for years but never wanted to admit. Once again I had been placed second. My name is Emma Wilson. I am 30 years old and I live in Austin, Texas. My wedding was 14 days away. And my parents had decided that my brother's luxury trip mattered more than my wedding day. My brother Jack Wilson. 32 years old. The favorite child. The one my father always talked about with pride. Jack has potential, my father would say. My mother Karen. 58 years old. She cared more about how our family looked to other people than what actually happened inside our home. My father Robert. 62 years old. A successful businessman but at home he always chose the easier path. Me. I was the daughter everyone told to be responsible. You can handle it, Emma. That sentence followed me my entire life. Maybe that was why it was so easy for them to overlook me. I met Daniel 2 years before my wedding. He was not the kind of man my family expected me to marry. He didn't drive an expensive car. He didn't own a huge house. He worked as a software engineer at a small technology company. My family never really liked him, especially my father. The first time Daniel came to our house for dinner, my father looked across the table and asked, "So what's your plan?" Daniel calmly answered, "To build a good life." My father laughed. "A good life? That's not really a plan." Daniel smiled. "It is for me." I liked that answer. Because Daniel never tried to impress anyone. He was just himself. When we started planning the wedding my parents told me they would help. My mother had held my hand and said, "Don't worry, Emma. We're going to make your wedding unforgettable." I believed her. Maybe that was my mistake. 2 weeks before the wedding I visited the venue one last time. It was a small garden outside Austin. White flowers lined the walkway. Soft lights hung above the trees. Everything looked exactly how I had imagined it. Then the next day my father called. "Emma, there's a problem." I immediately knew something was wrong. "What happened?" He paused. "Jack got an important business trip to Europe." I smiled slightly. "That's great." Then he became quiet. "We had to use some of the money." I didn't answer. As I already knew. "My wedding money?" He didn't respond. That silence told me everything. "You actually did that?" His voice stayed calm. "Emma, you can have a simple wedding with Daniel. Jack won't get another opportunity like this." I stood there holding my phone. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I just listened. Because that one sentence explained everything. Jack's dreams mattered. Mine didn't. That night I told Daniel everything. He sat quietly and listened. When I finished he asked, "What do you want?" I looked at him. "I don't know." He moved closer. "Emma, if the wedding is just about the event we can change the event. But if the real problem is that you've spent your whole life feeling less important, then we need to talk about that." For the first time I felt like someone wasn't just hearing me. Someone actually understood me. The next day I didn't call my parents. I didn't argue. I didn't beg them to reconsider. I simply made a decision. The wedding would happen. But it would happen my way. Called my best friend Laura. He came over with a notebook and a cup of coffee. "Are you seriously going to do all of this yourself?" I looked at the wedding plans. "I always have." We changed the small things. We reduced the guest list. We removed unnecessary expenses. We focused on what actually mattered. Daniel looked at me one night while we were organizing everything and said, "I don't need a huge wedding, Emma." He held my hand. "I just need you." The wedding day arrived. My parents came. Jack came too. He was wearing an expensive suit. He looked completely relaxed. He walked toward me and smiled. "Hey, everything okay?" I smiled back. "Yeah. Everything's fine." He had no idea that I was finally taking control of my own life. The ceremony was small, but it was beautiful. When I walked down the aisle toward Daniel, he looked at me like I was the only person there. There was no judgment in his eyes. No disappointment. Just happiness. A guest recorded part of our wedding and posted it online. At first it only got a few thousand views. Then people started sharing it. They loved how simple and real it was. Within a week, the video had reached millions of views. The comments kept coming. "This is the most genuine wedding I've ever seen. The couple's happiness is what actually matters." People connected with the fact that we weren't trying to impress anyone. We were just happy. While all of that was happening, something else was happening in my father's office on Monday morning. I didn't know about it yet. My father's company CEO Mark Anderson had sent him an email. The subject line read, "Regarding Emma Wilson." My father opened it. Inside was our wedding video. Below it was a message. "Can you explain how the daughter you considered the family's disappointment is secretly the owner of 50% of this company?" My father stared at the screen, because he had forgotten something important. Years earlier, my grandfather had created a trust in my name. That trust included half of the company shares. But my father had always kept me away from the business. He believed I wasn't capable. I didn't even know the truth until after my wedding. A lawyer contacted me. "Emma, according to your grandfather's will, you should have legally received your share of the company." I was confused. My father knew about this? The lawyer nodded. Yes. That was when everything became clear. My father wasn't just ignoring me. He was hiding something that belonged to me. For the first time in my life, I called my father. He answered immediately. "Emma, we need to talk." I took a breath. "Yes. We do." There was silence. Then he said, "Why didn't you tell us about this sooner?" I almost laughed. "You're asking me that?" He didn't answer. I continued. "You spent the money for my wedding on Jack's trip. You made decisions about my life without me. And now you're surprised that I finally made a decision for myself." He sighed. "We thought you didn't need it." I looked out the window. "No, Dad." I paused. "You thought I wasn't important." He didn't say anything. A few weeks later, there was a company meeting. I walked into the conference room. For the first time, I wasn't there as Robert Wilson's daughter. I was there as a shareholder. My father looked at me. I could see the embarrassment on his face. Mark stood up and smiled. "Emma, we're glad you're finally here." I nodded. "Thank you." Jack tried talking to me afterward. "Are you really still angry?" I looked at him. "Do you really have to ask?" He looked down. I said, "The problem was never your trip, Jack." He looked back at me. "The problem was that everyone thought sacrificing my dreams was the easiest option." He didn't have an answer. 1 year has passed since my wedding. Daniel and I are happy. We bought our own home. I have my role in the company. My parents apologized. I listened. But some things don't immediately go back to the way they were. Sometimes people underestimate you because they mistake your silence for weakness. My family thought I was just the daughter who wanted a simple wedding. They didn't know I was the same person who had more power than they ever imagined. The person they ignored turned out to be the person their company's future depended on. Thank you so much for staying with Emma's story until the end. If you enjoyed this emotional journey and believe everyone deserves to be valued and respected, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell. Share your thoughts in the comments and tell us what you would have done in Emma's place.